a scientist selects suburban residents as guinea pigs for a newly developed medication that has dreadful side effects. In Australia, Shaan films an ad to promote a rejuvenating vacation at Vimuville, a health farm and pharmaceutical company. That night, she's unclothed in her office with her boyfriend and head chemist Ryan. As he lies unconscious on the couch, she injects a mysterious green glowing liquid into his body. Afterward, Shaan calls her superior, assuring him that the chemist won't sabotage their plans. She knows Ryan opposes their unethical experiment and intends to save the targeted subjects. By hacking into the assistant's computer, the chemist discovers that the guinea pigs for Vimuville's new medication are residents of Pebbles Court, Holmesville. Upon learning the name of the first subject, he quickly writes the address on his arm, planning to warn him the next morning. That night, Ryan leaves the health farm. Before getting into his car, he burns his ID and leaves it on the ground. The next morning in Holmesville, the health-conscious Paul checks his mailbox and finds a pack of Vimuville vitamins. Arriving at a gas station, Ryan retrieves a medicine bottle from his jacket pocket and consumes all the tablets. As the bottle falls to the ground, he quickly picks it up. Afterward, he heads to the nearby convenience store. Suddenly, he feels something strange in his throat and begins to experience unusual cravings, leading him to ask the clerk for detergent. To the cashier's shock, the chemist consumes the detergent. Nevertheless, Ryan proceeds to the counter and leaves his card as payment. Just then, his neck rips open. After leaving the store, the chemist enters his car and drives uncontrollably. This draws the attention of the parked cops, prompting them to pursue him as he heads toward Holmesville. While behind the wheel, Ryan speaks into his dictaphone, describing the effects of the Vimuville vitamins he took. He explains that the first phase is hallucinogenic and the second is granular. However, as he attempts to describe the third phase, he is overwhelmed by pain, causing him to crash into a realtor's van. The impact ejects him from the car. His veins, now resembling tentacles, extend from his neck before retracting back into his body. At this moment, the police arrive, witnessing his awful condition. Observing the scene from his window, Paul steps back, feeling unsettled. He then tries the Vimuville vitamin he received earlier. Pouring the powder into a glass, he adds water, creating a green drink. Then, Paul goes outside to see the accident. There, he meets the senior detective, Sam, who's arrived to investigate. Suddenly, two Italian teenagers, Gino and Sal, approach the officer, explaining that they were just about to drive off when the accident happened. Upon hearing this, Sam quickly takes down notes and permits them to leave. Afterward, he turns to Paul to ask questions, but the resident mentions his trip to the airport. The detective allows him to go but informs him that they'll talk in the evening. During the investigation, Sam discovers Ryan's dictaphone inside the car. When he plays it, he hears the chemist's last words, describing 3 phases of what happened to his body. When Paul arrives at the airport, he suddenly gets a headache. Taking a moment to sit, he notices an old woman across from him. Strangely, a bright light shines on her face, and she eventually disappears. Unbeknownst to him, he's already experiencing hallucinogenic effects of the vitamins he took. Suddenly, his phone rings. As he answers, the voice on the other end of the line informs him that his trip is cancelled. Later, Paul continues to experience hallucinations. His coffee suddenly appears brighter, and he encounters Kate. She reveals that her boyfriend physically assaulted her and needs a place to stay. Meanwhile, the excited teenagers, Gino and Sal, are on a trip to the health farm to donate their reproductive fluids for cash, as Shaan promised. However, they soon get lost and need their windscreen fixed, leading them into the outback. There, they meet Pud, who has a strange family comprising Bab, Bronto, Slab, and Mac. Meanwhile, Paul suddenly finds himself in an office building. Seeing he's sweaty and tired, his secretary offers to take over and suggests he rest at his house. Arriving home, Paul hallucinates again and sees the wounded Kate, who comments on how awful the place looks. He then directs her to the spare bedroom and bathroom. Suddenly, she vanishes, leaving him confused. That night, he suddenly awakens after dreaming of a beautiful Kate, who suddenly entered his room and massaged his stomach. Meanwhile, in the outback, Slab tries to flirt with Sal. On the other hand, Gino converses with Pud, who asks him where he's from. When the teenager mentions that he's from Holmesville, the man strangely pauses. Suddenly, Gino's interrupted by the sight of Bab and Bronto running. He and Sal follow them, only to witness the gruesome scene of the duo ending a kangaroo's life and consuming its adrenal gland. Regardless, Gino joins the pair, and they ride the pickup truck for fun. Meanwhile, Sal approaches the flirtatious Slab, who lures him inside the shed where they spend a physical moment together. Meanwhile, Sam and Jono are on their way to Vimuville after discovering the medicine bottle on Ryan's jacket. In the outback, Bab shows Gino around the house. There, the teenager discovers a photo of a younger Pud beside another doctor beneath the Vimuville logo. Suddenly, a loud sound startles them, prompting Bab to run outside and check what's happened. It turns out that Slab ended Sal's life with a stake in the shed. Left behind, Gino explores the house and enters another room. Inside, he encounters a dog and an explicit show playing on the TV. Just as he's about to sit down, he's startled by the sudden appearance of another family member of Pud, prompting him to flee the house. As he runs, Bronto tries to grab him, but he manages to punch his face. Meanwhile, after discovering what Slab did to Sal, Bab panics and reports it to Pud. When the old man sees the blood-mouthed woman coming out of the shed, he punches her in the face, scolds her, and reminds her to keep their secret in the family. Because of Sal's demise, Pud realizes he has no choice but to end Gino. He then instructs his family to search for the teenager. Hearing the plan, Gino quickly runs to Pud's car and attempts to escape with it. However, the family only corners him. When Sam and Jono arrive at Vimuville, they meet Shaan and interrogate her inside the office. When they show her a photo of Ryan, the woman denies knowing him. Hearing this, the detective shows the Vimuville bottle they found on the chemist's body. In response, Shaan explains that she's been marketing some of their products to promote the resort, thinking that Ryan is a customer who purchased it. The woman then inquires about the cause of the man's death, and the inspector explains it was due to a car crash. Sam asks if Shaan has staff who live in Holmesville, but she mentions that all her employees are local. Suddenly, Jono interjects, inquiring what V stands for, to which he answers vitamins. As she leads them out, the assistant shows the detectives the leisure center, which Jono describes as a holiday resort. After this, Sam and Jono visit Willie, a pathologist. Willie explains his findings, describing that Ryan's stomach cell walls have been eroded by something corrosive. He theorizes that the chemist must have taken medication, specifically a cognition enhancer. As the detectives examine Ryan's body, they discover the address written on his arm. Sam quickly figures out that the address belongs to Paul. The next morning, Paul wakes up and takes his Vimuville vitamins. Before heading to work, he checks his mailbox. Peering inside, he sees Kate approaching him and then showing him rib bones in bed. Concerned, he returns to the house and searches for the woman. Suddenly, the light becomes too bright, and he finds himself back in bed being massaged by her. As she does this, she shares that she has already claimed 12 others and that he is the last one. She reveals that her quest was to collect 13 male ribs and admits that she chose him at the airport, where she materialized as an image of his deepest fears. As she continues to massage him, a rib emerges from his body, causing Paul to pass out upon seeing it. Meanwhile, Angelica and Thompson Noble, also oblivious guinea pigs of Vimuville, receive a videotape from the health farm in their mailbox. On the other hand, Brian Rand kisses his wife Cheryl goodbye before heading to work. After her husband leaves, the pregnant woman encounters Sam, who asks if she knows Paul Matthews, who lives nearby. However, Cheryl explains that she recently moved that week and that she and her husband haven't met anyone yet. Before leaving, the detective advises her to contact him if she sees anybody at Paul's house. Following this, Cheryl visits Dr. Carrera for a checkup. When the physician asks her how she's doing, she shares that she couldn't sleep well the previous night. Hearing this, the doctor suggests it might be because the infant has the highest protein intake in the evening. Carrera then advises the woman that babies are the ultimate parasites until their birth, but he assures her that everything is under control, so she shouldn't worry. He then reminds her to see him at the same time next week. Following this, Carrera contacts Shaan, revealing himself as the boss she spoke to earlier and tells her they must decrease Cheryl's dosage. However, Shaan is against this, explaining that it would invalidate the results. However, the physician insists they do it because the patient is overreacting to the vitamins. He proposes changing their strategy since it had awful effects on Ryan. Hearing this, Shaan asserts that she didn't know her boyfriend couldn't handle the dose. In response, the doctor points out that the medication's effects are still too unpredictable to be released to the market. The assistant then explains that she already set up an exclusive dealership with one of the largest chain stores in the country. However, the doctor interrupts her, reminding her to focus on the detectives. Carrera then points out that there's still something wrong with their medication because Ryan underreacted to it while Cheryl overreacted. When the doctor asks if the two Italian teenagers have turned up for the research, Shaan can't answer. Instead, she suggests running simultaneous tests on the Noble family without halting the Cheryl experiment. However, the doctor asserts she must not question him, claiming that if their experiment goes wrong, it'll be worse than the thalidomide tragedy. Annoyed, the assistant hangs up and calls for her assistant, Beauville, instructing him to ship tablets that evening. When the man points out that it's way ahead of Carrera's schedule, Shaan emphasizes that the doctor is only in charge of the infield placement and that she handles consignment and distribution. Following the order, Beauville heads to the warehouse and starts shipping. Meanwhile, Carrera receives a call. Thinking it's Shaan, he advises her to never hang up on him again. However, it turns out to be Pud, his former business partner. At home, Cheryl faces the mirror assessing if a maternity dress fits her. After this, she looks out the window to see her neighbor's house. However, she's shocked upon seeing Paul, who has liquid oozing out of his nose and ears. That night, Cheryl wakes up and heads to the bathroom to drink a glass of water. Sitting on the toilet, she suddenly feels her baby moving, prompting her to grab the stethoscope. As she listens to the sound, she hears strange breathing. The next morning, the pregnant woman checks her mailbox. Suddenly, Thompson greets her and welcomes her to the neighborhood. Angelica also introduces herself and her children, Eloise and Brandon. Cheryl appreciates the gesture and wants them to meet her husband when they return. When she asks where they're going, Thompson shares that they're off to experience a holiday they'll never forget. When Cheryl returns to the house, she continues to unpack. She then puts a framed photo of her and Brian on the shelf. Following this, she drinks coffee. Just then, she feels excruciating pain, causing her to drop the mug. Suddenly, she feels something drop and is shocked to see that her placenta is on the floor. At that moment, the phone rings. When she learns it's Carrera, she asks if it's possible to drop her placenta 1 month before birth. When the doctor explains it's impossible, Cheryl asks him to come over immediately. When she hangs up, she suddenly realizes that the placenta on the floor disappeared. In panic, she starts looking for it inside the boxes. Meanwhile, Carrera contacts Brian, asking his patient's husband to meet him in Holmesville. At home, Cheryl continues to feel pain, prompting her to lie in bed. When she feels like the child is about to break out of her body, she attempts to end it with a sharp weapon. Just then, Brian arrives and stops her upon seeing what she's about to do. However, the placenta suddenly attacks his face. Despite this, he tries to remove the sharp weapon from Cheryl's hand, but the placenta pushes his face against the wall and starts entering his mouth. At the same time, Cheryl's stomach bursts open, showing no baby inside. Following the incident, Sam arrives to investigate, suspecting Brian ended his wife's life due to the fingerprints on the sharp weapon. When the detective meets Carrera, he asks if he knows Paul, but the doctor denies it. When Carrera asks the detective if Paul is a suspect, Sam shares about the accident the other day, and he thinks that Paul is involved because Ryan was on his way to see him before he met his demise. Suddenly, the detective inquires the doctor if he's knowledgeable about a virus that causes hallucinogenic delusions and granular complications. Hearing this, Carrera cites dizziness, vertigo, and tunnel vision. When Sam asks him if Cheryl is under a special medication, the doctor lies, emphasizing that his patient is not taking anything. After they part ways, Carrera heads to Paul's house. However, when he sees him, Paul's body has reached the third phase of the side effect, which is melting. The man then tries to squeeze the face of the doctor, who manages to stop him by injecting a new medication into his skin. Meanwhile, the Noble family arrives at the leisure center. Shaan then welcomes them inside and introduces them to Demetra, who guides them for the day. While they're eating, Angelica notices mucus coming out of her husband's nose. Conscious, Thompson excuses himself and goes to the bathroom, unaware that the mucus he blew onto the sink starts moving on its own. Meanwhile, Brandon teases Eloise while she is cycling in the gym area. Annoyed, she wishes he would break his neck. Bored of the place, the boy heads outside and finds a skateboard ramp, only to get into an accident and fall flat on his face. That night, Angelica asks Thompson about their son, but he assumes that the boy is camping outside for the night. The next morning, Sam and Jono discover Paul's lifeless body and Carrera's vial, prompting them to go to the doctor's office. Meanwhile, Shaan checks on the Noble family's urinalysis, prompting her to leave a message on Carrera's answering machine. When the detectives hear this message, Sam immediately requests a chopper to get to Vimuville and apprehend the assistant. The next morning, Bowman steals some medication in Shaan's office. Meanwhile, Beauville tries to allure Demetra, but she gets annoyed and leaves the room. Alone, his private area explodes, revealing that he took some Vimuville vitamins too. Carrera then meets Pud in the outback. In their conversation, it's revealed that they partnered on a similar experiment before, and the old man took the medication for testing which caused him to have enhanced hearing. Pud then gives the doctor a little additive, revealing that it was the missing ingredient meant to prevent consumers from exploding while they acquire powers. In the health farm, Bowman, who also took the vitamins, accidentally ends Demetra's life during a moment of intimacy. Meanwhile, Angelica discovers the melted and gooey Thompson in the bathroom, prompting her to alert her daughter. However, when Eloise heads to Shaan's office, the teenager shockingly finds that the assistant's body is melting too. Angelica and Eloise then flee to seek help from a clinic where they meet Mr. Thorkett, who reveals that Vimuville was an old chemical dump and was closed by the Health Commission. Hearing this, Eloise panics upon realizing that her family has eaten the food served on the health farm. Just then, Angelica's tongue starts mutating, eventually taking her life. Meanwhile, Carrera arrives at Vimuville and sees Shaan's melted body in the office. Behind him, Sam and Jono appear to apprehend him, but he only shoots himself. Following this, authorities clean up the health farm to eliminate all the harmful vitamins. However, one day, one of Sam's colleagues explodes in the police station, and everyone is unaware of what caused it. When Willie arrives to investigate, he mentions that a lot of deaths have been happening at the time due to unnatural causes. Suddenly, Jono gets a headache, prompting Willie to advise him to get some aspirin. That night, Sam and his partner pull over at a gas station. As Sam is about to enter the convenience store, Jono asks him to buy some aspirin. After making a purchase, Sam leaves the store, unaware that it sells Vimuville vitamins.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.